Level 4 Certificate in Education and Training. Unit D, Assessing Learners in Education and Training. What is assessment? Assessment is the means by which we find out if, and how much, learning has taken place. There are many different types and methods of assessment which we can use throughout a learning program to ascertain the progress of learners. It's important to remember that assessment is of the learners, as opposed to evaluation, which is of the program. Most people who are carrying out assessments will follow the assessment cycle, which continues until all aspects of the program or qualification being worked towards are achieved by the learner. Assessment cycle. Initial assessment. Assessment planning. Assessment activity. Assessment decision and feedback. Review of progress. Types of assessment. Types of assessment are used for checking that learning is or has taken place and providing feedback/grades where applicable. Formative, monitors student learning and helps teachers to improve their practice. Summative, evaluates student learning against a set benchmark at the end of the program. Initial, establishes the current ability of the learner, pre-course. Diagnostic, looks at additional support needs that may be required by individual learner. Ipsative, measures the student's progress against their own previous work. Holistic/integrated, brings together sets of skills/knowledge to be assessed in a combined manner. Methods of assessment. Once you know which type of assessment you are going to carry out, it is time to decide on a method. In other words, how will you assess the learners? Observation, live demonstration/evidence of skills and knowledge. Discussion, encourages contribution from each learner. Allows individuals to learn and share with their peers. Examination, challenges learners to learn and retain information for presentation later. Allows for explanation in response. Portfolios, combines work over a period of time, allowing learners to develop their skills and knowledge. Meeting individual learner needs. As within other aspects of teaching, you should be thinking about the individual needs of learners during assessments and what you can do to meet these needs. Some examples include arranging more suitable dates and/or times for learners who may have difficult employment arrangements, for example shift work. Adapting the environment to suit learners who are physically disabled. Providing dyslexia-friendly materials and extra time for learners with process-related problems such as dyslexia or dyscalculia. Ensure that you stick to organizational guidance when making adaptations or changes to the assessment process. Involving learners in the assessment process. Communication with all parties involved in the progress of the learner is crucial in ensuring that the learning and assessment process is effective. The learner should be involved in the assessment process from the very beginning, so that ILPs can be created. The learner can inform you of any relevant issues that may affect their performance. The learner can take ownership of their own development. There are a few different ways of involving the learner in the assessment process. A few examples include: ask your learners about other learning programs they have been involved in, and whether you could instigate the process of RPL, recognition of prior learning. Ask your learners about their prior knowledge before a task, and check how much this has changed at the end of the session using an assessment method. Ask your learners to complete a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, analysis. Involving others in the assessment process. There are lots of reasons why you may need to liaise with others during the assessment process. For example, your learner may require additional support during their assessment process, such as a scribe during exams. It is important to remember to remain professional at all times, as when you liaise with others, especially externally, you are a representation of your organization. It's also crucial that you continue to follow confidentiality and data protection protocol. Who might you need to liaise with? Internal to the organization, administrators, assessors, colleagues, exam officers, internal quality assurers, invigilators, managers, mentors, teachers, trainers, support staff. external to the organization, careers advisors, employers, external quality assurers, inspectors and regulators, parents, guardians or carers, probation officers, social workers, supervisors, staff from other organizations and agencies, witnesses and other involved in the assessment of your learners. Peer and self-assessment. It is useful to incorporate peer and self-assessment into your practice, as these are different ways of encouraging your learners to further develop their understanding. These methods are beneficial for a variety of reasons. Help to clarify learning goals. Deepen learner understanding of the topic. Gives the learner another perspective on how the work could be done. Helps to develop a sense of ownership. Develops reflective habits. Helps to attribute success to doing the right thing, rather than to talent or a flair for the subject. Questioning and feedback. Questioning is one of the most powerful tools a teacher can use, as it teaches students to think for themselves. We can assess learners through questions in order to see what information they are able to recall and if they are able to think logically and work things out. Data recall. What is the capital of France? Naming. What is the name of the bone in the thigh? Observation. What color was the litmus paper? Control. Will you sit down, Jacob? Pseudo question. An open question but the teacher expects only one answer. What do you see here? Higher order question types. Speculative hypothesis. What would happen if all the trees in the world were cut down tomorrow? Give reasons. Why do people in developing countries have so many children? Evaluation. What evidence is there for and against the existence of an afterlife? Problem solving. How can we drill the wood without overheating the drill? Internal and external requirements of assessment. There are certain standards and requirements that must be met in order for assessment results to be considered acceptable. Your organization will have a set of requirements that must be met and regulations that must be followed regarding the assessment process. This could involve holding standardization and quality meetings, sharing assessment tasks with colleagues and reporting all information gained in a particular way. There will also be external requirements that must be met. For example, an awarding body, such as Edexcel, etc., will have specific criteria that work must be marked against in order for a qualification to be gained. VACSR, valid, authentic, current, sufficient, reliable. Valid is the method chosen to assess the work valid, i.e. the correct method for this piece of work. Has the assessor used a valid method of marking? Authentic is the work original. Has it been copied or plagiarized? Current is the method being used correct and up to date. Is the work that is being checked also current and up to date? Has it been submitted? Has the document expired? Sufficient, has all the criteria been sufficiently met? Reliable, if the assessment was repeated, would similar results occur? Conducting assessment. When carrying out assessment, the following tips are useful to keep in mind. Keep it manageable. Have reasonable expectations. Let people review the assessment materials before use. Communicate effectively. Work within the constraints of the current system. Respect and empower people. Know and understand what it is you're assessing and why. Recording assessment outcomes. Recording assessment outcomes is important as it provides data on how much the learner knows and how they have progressed. It also helps to identify what needs to be done in order to improve. Every organization will have different rules on how assessment outcomes should be recorded, and these may differ dependent on what kind of assessment is being carried out and for what purpose. Whenever you make records of assessment outcomes, make sure they are clearly and accurately inputted and stored in an accessible way. The assessments should build up gradually throughout the course of study to give a full picture of the learner's achievements and abilities. Communicating assessment information. When assessment has been carried out, there are different people or groups who you will need to communicate with regarding results. Learners, Explaining the results of an assessment to the person on whom it has been carried out is crucial, as it allows the individual to know how well they have done, what they have done well in, how much progress they have made, the areas where they could improve and how they could make these improvements. Other professionals, depending on what kind of assessment has been carried out, the data collected may be of use to other teachers/trainers. For example, if a diagnostic assessment reveals a learner to be dyslexic, this information should be communicated to others so provisions can be made for that individual's needs. Parents/guardians, if you are teaching younger learners, i.e. school children, their parents/guardians will most likely want to know how well their child is doing and in what subjects. Minimum core elements in assessment. As with your teaching, you should look to include the minimum core elements of literacy and language, numeracy, ICT and communication skills within your assessment practice. It's relatively easy to integrate these areas. For example, if assessing via a written essay, the assessment method naturally calls for literacy/language and communication skills. Likewise, an online test calls on ICT skills, whilst assessments that require logical thinking can be related to mathematics/numeracy. Evaluating assessment practice. It is important to evaluate assessment practice so that any areas of concern can be resolved and so that it remains a fair way of working out where each learner is at. For evaluation of any aspect of the teaching role, we can use Kolb's cycle. If you would like to cite this presentation in your work, please use the format below.